How does it feel to lay everything on the line? $400 million, your entire championship blueprint, the future of your franchise, only to get outbid by $30 million and watch your savior sign with a division rival. Ladies and gentlemen, we're witnessing a potential disaster in the making for the Toronto Blue Jays. This isn't just another free agency mess. This is the kind of gut punch that defines eras, that separates contenders from pretenders, that haunts front offices for decades. Kyle Tucker, the name that's been on every Blue Jays fan's lips since the offseason began. The five-tool superstar who could transform Toronto from World Series Game 7 heartbreak into championship glory. The Blue Jays rolled out the red carpet, brought him to their spring training facility, and reportedly slapped down 11 years and $400 million. And according to the latest bombshell prediction from MLB insider Ilya Muhammad, it still won't be enough. Steve Cohen and the New York Mets are about to crash this party with 430 million reasons why Tucker should head to Queens instead of Toronto. If this prediction comes true, we're not just talking about missing out on a player. We're talking about watching your championship window get violently slammed shut while your rival builds a dynasty right in front of your eyes. The Blue Jays' championship desperation. Let's be brutally honest about where Toronto stands right now, because context is everything in this story. The Blue Jays just clawed their way to Game 7 of the World Series. Game 7. They were 4 outs away from glory, 4 outs from immortality, 4 outs from erasing decades of playoff disappointment. And they came up short. That kind of loss doesn't just sting. It burns into your soul. It haunts your offseason. It transforms every decision into a referendum on whether you have the guts to get back there and finish the job. That's the pressure cooker Toronto's front office is operating in right now. They can't afford to stand pat. They can't afford to make safe, conservative moves. They need to be aggressive, bold, and willing to spend whatever it takes to capitalize on this championship window before it evaporates. And make no mistake, that window is closing faster than anyone wants to admit. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is entering his prime years, but he's also entering the final stretch of team control. The clock is ticking. Every day that passes without maximizing this roster is a day wasted, an opportunity squandered, a chance at glory slipping through their fingers. That's why Kyle Tucker isn't just a target, he's the target. He's the missing piece that could elevate Toronto's lineup from dangerous to absolutely unstoppable. Let's talk about what Tucker brings to the table, because his numbers barely scratch the surface of his impact. Last season with Houston, Tucker's /.289/.408/.585 with 23 home runs and 49 RBIs in just 78 games before injury cut his campaign short. But here's what those numbers don't tell you. Tucker is a complete, elite, five-tool player who does everything at an all-star level. He's a Gold Glove caliber defender in right field with instincts that save runs and change games. He's got legitimate power, 30 homer potential in a full season, combined with the speed to steal 20-plus bases. His plate discipline is elite, drawing walks at a rate that drives opposing pitchers absolutely insane. And at 28 years old, he's entering his absolute prime, the sweet spot where experience meets athleticism and produces MVP-caliber seasons. Imagine Tucker hitting behind Guerrero in Toronto's lineup. Imagine the protection they'd provide each other, the impossible decisions pitchers would face, the run-scoring potential that would make the Blue Jays' offense a nightmare matchup for any team in baseball. That's not fantasy. That's what $400 million buys you. That's what Toronto is desperately trying to secure. But here's where the story takes a devastating turn that should terrify every single Blue Jays fan. Steve Cohen doesn't play by normal rules. The billionaire hedge fund manager who bought the Mets didn't purchase a baseball team to finish second. He bought it to dominate, to overwhelm, to fundamentally change the competitive landscape through sheer financial force. And according to Ilya Muhammad's prediction at Newsweek, Cohen is about to drop a financial bomb that blows Toronto's offer out of the water. 11 years for $130 million for Kyle Tucker. $30 million more than the Blue Jays' reported offer. $30 million that says, your best isn't good enough. Your championship dreams aren't as important as mine. Your financial commitment is cute, but let me show you what real money looks like. Muhammad's reasoning is sound and absolutely chilling. Steve Cohen and the Mets are not going to go an entire offseason watching star free agent sign with other teams. The Mets still have Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor and are not in a position to go into a rebuild. They get back to their spending ways by outbidding the Blue Jays by $30 million, creating a core of Soto, Lindor, and Tucker for years to come. Let that sink in. Soto, Lindor, and Tucker. 3 legitimate superstars in their primes, locked up long-term, forming the nucleus of a potential dynasty that could terrorize the National League for the next decade. The Mets have been relatively quiet this offseason after losing Edwin Diaz, Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, and Jeff McNeil. They've made moves, signing Luke Weaver and Devin Williams, trading for Marcus Semien, but nothing that screams championship contender. Cohen isn't the type of owner who tolerates mediocrity. He's aggressive, impatient, and possesses the deepest pockets in professional sports. And here's the part that should make Blue Jays fans physically ill. Toronto can't compete with that narrative. They can match the money, maybe, but they can't offer Tucker the chance to play alongside Juan Soto, arguably the most feared hitter in baseball, and Francisco Lindor, a perennial MVP candidate who just led the Mets deep into the playoffs. The Blue Jays are offering Tucker a chance to be the cornerstone in Toronto, the face of the franchise, the savior who leads them to glory. The Mets are offering him a chance to be part of a big three that could dominate baseball for a generation, to play in the biggest media market in the world, to chase championships with 2 other superstars who can carry the load when he's struggling. Which pitch sounds more appealing? Which vision of the future would you choose if you were Tucker? The answer should terrify Toronto, but let's not write Toronto's obituary just yet, because the Blue Jays aren't putting all their chips on Kyle Tucker. They can't afford to. Smart front offices always have backup plans, alternative routes to success, contingencies for when Plan A falls apart. And according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, Toronto is targeting multiple impact bats this offseason. Not just Tucker, but Alex Bregman and Bichette as well. And here's the kicker. They might land more than one. I don't think the Blue Jays are done, Passan revealed. I think they're going to get a big bat. Not sure if that's Kyle Tucker or Alex Bregman or Bichette, or maybe multiple of them. The Blue Jays right now are in a position where they are willing to spend. They feel like they have a window here, and they are going to take advantage of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s prime years. Multiple big bats. That's not conservative roster building, that's aggressive, win-now mentality that recognizes championship windows don't stay open forever. But here's where the strategy gets really interesting, and this is where Ken Rosenthal's insider knowledge becomes crucial. According to Rosenthal, the Blue Jays' greater organizational need isn't in the outfield, it's in the infield. They need stability up the middle, defensive reliability, and offensive production from positions where they've been getting inconsistent results. Both Bregman and Bichette fit that profile perfectly, and they might actually be smarter targets than Tucker given Toronto's specific roster construction. Alex Bregman brings championship pedigree, 2 World Series rings with Houston, and a career .272 .366 .483 line that screams consistency and reliability. He's a third baseman who plays with an edge, who thrives under pressure, who's been there and done that in October when the stakes are highest. He's also a proven leader who could provide veteran guidance to a relatively young Toronto core that's still learning how to win at the highest level. Bichette, meanwhile, offers youth upside and elite bat-to-ball skills that make him one of the most dangerous contact hitters in baseball. He's a 2-time All-Star shortstop with gap power, speed that creates chaos on the base paths, and the defensive chops to anchor Toronto's infield for years. He's also likely more cost-effective than Tucker, which would allow the Blue Jays to allocate resources to other areas of need. Their bullpen, their catching depth, their bench. Rosenthal's logic is compelling. All these things are in play for the Blue Jays. I imagine Tucker and Cody Bellinger, to an extent, are as well. Their greater need, is in the infield. The Blue Jays, you can see the logic there. So here's the strategic question that will define Toronto's offseason. If they lose Tucker to the Mets' financial onslaught, do they pivot immediately to Bregman and Bichette? Do they go all in on upgrading their infield and trust that their current outfield, which isn't terrible, can get the job done? Or do they make one final, desperate push for Tucker, matching or exceeding Cohen's offer, and betting everything on landing their white whale? The answer to that question will determine whether this offseason is remembered as a near miss or a strategic masterstroke. Let's zoom out and talk about the elephant in the room, because this entire conversation exists within a larger, more urgent context: Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s future. Vlad Jr. is 25 years old, entering his absolute prime, and he's one of the most devastating offensive forces in baseball. When he's locked in, he's unstoppable, a middle-of-the-order masher who can carry an offense for weeks, who makes opposing pitchers lose sleep, who changes the entire complexion of a lineup just by stepping into the batter's box. But here's the uncomfortable reality that Toronto's front office can't ignore. Guerrero will be a free agent after the 2025 season. That's right. The Blue Jays have exactly 1 year of guaranteed team control before Vlad hits the open market, and every big-spending franchise in baseball starts circling like sharks. Toronto can offer him an extension. They should offer him an extension. They need to offer him an extension. But there's absolutely no guarantee he signs. If Guerrero walks in free agency, the Blue Jays' championship window doesn't just close, it gets welded shut and buried under concrete. That's why this offseason is so monumentally important. That's why they're willing to spend $400 million on Tucker or pivot to Bregman and Bichette. That's why every decision, every negotiation, every dollar spent carries existential weight. Passan nailed it when he said Toronto is willing to take advantage of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s prime years. That's not just front office speak or media spin. That's a recognition that championship windows are fragile, fleeting, precious things that require aggressive action and bold decision-making. Losing Tucker to the Mets would hurt. It would sting. It would force Toronto to explain to their fan base why they came up $30 million short when the stakes were this high. But it wouldn't be fatal. Not if the Blue Jays execute their backup plan with the same aggression and urgency they've shown in pursuing Tucker. If they land Bregman and Bichette, they'd be adding 2 impact players instead of 1, addressing their infield needs while significantly upgrading their offense. If they pivot to Cody Bellinger, they'd be getting a former MVP with championship experience and positional versatility. The options exist. The money exists. The organizational will exists. What remains to be seen is whether Toronto can close deals when it matters most, or whether they'll be left standing at the altar while Steve Cohen and the Mets ride off into the sunset with their dream target. So here we stand, folks, watching a potential franchise-defining moment unfold in real time. The Toronto Blue Jays, fresh off a heartbreaking Game 7 World Series loss, staring down their championship window and recognizing that time waits for no one. Kyle Tucker represents the dream, the superstar acquisition that transforms them from contender to favorite, from good to great, from close to champions. But dreams don't always survive contact with Steve Cohen's checkbook. The prediction is stark and unforgiving. Tucker to the Mets for $430 million over 11 years, leaving Toronto to pick up the pieces and execute Plan B, Plan C, or whatever contingency gets them closest to their championship aspirations. But here's what Blue Jays fans need to understand. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Toronto has shown they're willing to spend, willing to be aggressive, willing to make bold moves that maximize Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s prime years before that window slams shut forever. Whether it's Bregman, Bichette, Bellinger, or some combination that nobody's even considering yet, the Blue Jays are going to add impact talent this offseason. They have to. The alternative, standing pat and hoping last year's roster can get over the hump, is organizational malpractice when you're this close to glory. The question isn't whether Toronto will make a splash. The question is whether that splash will be big enough, bold enough, impactful enough to compete with the Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, and every other heavyweight in baseball's financial arms race. And if Tucker does spurn the Blue Jays for New York, will this moment be remembered as the one that got away, or as the catalyst that forced Toronto's front office to get creative, to think differently, to build something special through alternative routes that nobody saw coming? Only time will tell. But championship windows don't wait for perfect plans or ideal scenarios. They demand action, urgency, and the courage to make bold decisions when the stakes are highest. If you're sitting there thinking the Blue Jays are making a catastrophic mistake by not going all in on Tucker, or if you believe pivoting to Bregman and Bichette is actually the smarter play, I need to hear from you in the comments right now. Should Toronto match whatever Cohen offers, or is there a better path to championship glory that we're not seeing? Smash that like button if you want more breaking analysis on the Blue Jays' offseason moves, and make sure you're subscribed because this free agency period is about to get absolutely insane. We're just getting started, and the next few weeks will define Toronto's championship aspirations for years to come.